The town of Red Valley was small, dusty, and quiet most days, but everyone knew how fast things changed when the sun rose over the old wooden saloon. People came out early, ready to judge, ready to gossip, and ready to laugh at anyone who looked weaker than them. In the middle of all this stood a young cowboy named Tom. He was poor, dressed in worn boots and a faded hat that once belonged to his father. Tom never complained. He simply worked, smiled, and tried to survive the long days under the hot sun. Tom lived alone on the edge of town in a broken cabin that looked as tired as he felt. He dreamed of owning a strong horse one day, a horse that could help him carry goods, travel far, and maybe even take part in the town races. But dreams felt heavy when pockets were empty. Tom walked everywhere. He worked for little money. He carried water for people who did not even look at him. Still, he never let bitterness enter his heart. One morning, the town sheriff announced that the ranch outside Red Valley was giving away a single horse for free as part of a charity event. The news spread fast. People rushed to the ranch, excited to see which lucky soul would take the horse home. Tom heard the news while unloading wooden crates at the market. His heart jumped. He dropped the crates and ran toward the ranch, dust flying behind him. When Tom arrived, the crowd was already thick. Men with polished boots, women with fancy hats, and children climbing fences all gathered to see the horse. Some laughed when they saw Tom join the group. They whispered that he would never get anything good in life. A few even joked that he should not hope for anything more than a tired donkey. Tom heard the laughs, but he kept his eyes on the ranch gate, waiting with hope. Finally, the ranch owner stepped out, holding a rope. Everyone leaned forward, eager to see the animal. When the gate opened, a giant horse walked out. The horse was enormous, taller than any animal the town had seen. Its muscles rippled under a dark brown coat, and its steps shook the ground. The crowd gasped. Children cheered. Some men whistled in awe. This horse looked like a creature from legends. Tom stared at the giant horse with wide eyes. He felt warmth rush through his chest. It was beautiful. It was strong. It was more than he ever imagined owning in his life. But the crowd quickly ruined the moment with loud laughs and mocking smiles. Someone shouted that Tom was too weak for such a large animal. Another said the horse would drag him across the dirt before he even climbed the saddle. A few men elbowed each other, enjoying the jokes more than the truth of the moment. Tom stayed silent, letting them talk, hoping the ranch owner would simply choose fairly. The ranch owner stepped forward and cleared his throat. He explained that the giveaway was not random. The horse would go to the person who needed it most. The crowd murmured, each person trying to appear humble. But the owner continued. He said he had been watching the town for many months. He saw who worked hard, who helped others, and who never caused trouble. Then he looked directly at Tom. The crowd went silent for a few seconds. Then the laughter exploded. People thought it was the biggest joke they had ever heard. They laughed louder than before, pointing at Tom as if he was part of a grand comedy. Some shouted that Tom would break under the weight of such a horse. Others said the giant animal would eat more food than Tom could ever afford. Children repeated the adults, giggling without understanding the cruelty. Tom felt his face grow warm. He kept his hands steady by his sides, fighting the urge to step back. He had never asked for pity. He had never asked for anything. But now he stood in the middle of the crowd as the center of their jokes. He lowered his gaze for a moment, unsure if he deserved the horse or if he should walk away. But then he remembered his father's words. His father always said that a person who stays kind during storms becomes stronger than steel. Tom took a slow breath and lifted his head again. The ranch owner ignored the laughter. He walked straight to Tom, placed the thick rope in his hands, and said the horse belonged to him now. Tom froze. His fingers curled around the rope. The giant horse looked down at him with calm eyes, as if it understood the situation better than the humans around them. For a moment, Tom felt a strange connection with the animal. It was powerful, but gentle. Strong, but patient. Just like the kind of friend he needed. The crowd, however, did not stop. Some laughed harder. Some shook their heads, calling it a mistake. A few even suggested the horse would run away the moment Tom tried to ride it. Tom felt a sting inside his heart, but when he turned to the horse again, he saw kindness in its eyes. The giant creature lowered its head slightly, allowing Tom to place a hand on its warm neck. Tom whispered a soft thank you to the horse. He knew he had a long journey ahead if he wanted to take care of such a large animal. He would need food, shelter, and time to learn how to ride it properly. But he also felt something new inside him, something he had not felt in years. He felt hope. The ranch owner placed a hand on Tom's shoulder and wished him luck. He told the crowd that strength was not always found in muscles or wealth. Sometimes it was found in the quiet endurance of someone who never stopped trying. The crowd softened for a short moment, but the whispers and jokes continued as Tom led the horse away. Tom walked slowly toward his small cabin with the giant horse following him. The sun was warm, the path long, and the future unknown. But Tom felt a growing belief that this gift was not a burden. It was a chance. A chance for change. A chance for something bigger than his past struggles. What happened next would shock the entire town. Tom walked slowly along the dirt road with the giant horse following close behind. The animal's steps were heavy but steady, and Tom felt each vibration travel through the ground. People kept staring as he passed the market and the well. Some whispered. Some pointed. A few even laughed again, saying he would not last a single day with such a large creature. Tom pretended not to hear them, but the words settled inside his heart like small stones. When Tom finally reached his small cabin, he realized how unprepared he was. The stable behind the cabin was too small. It was built for an ordinary horse, not for this giant animal. The roof was low, the wooden walls were weak, and the feeding area was tiny. Tom looked at the horse and apologized softly, promising to make things better. The horse lowered its head gently, as if accepting the promise. Tom spent the entire afternoon working. He cut old wooden planks, hammered new boards, and widened the stable door. Sweat ran down his face as he worked in the heat. He had no fancy tools, only a worn hammer and a dull saw, but he kept going. The horse watched him quietly, standing in the shade of a tree behind the cabin. It did not complain. It simply waited, patient and calm, giving Tom quiet encouragement with its steady presence. By sunset, Tom had widened the stable enough for the horse to enter. The roof was not perfect, but it offered shelter. The feeding area was still small, but Tom placed fresh grass and a bucket of water inside. When the horse stepped into its new home, Tom felt a wave of relief. He smiled as he watched the horse explore the small space. The giant animal moved carefully, as if trying not to break anything. Tom sat outside the stable for a moment, breathing deeply. He had never owned anything so grand in his life. The thought of losing it scared him. The thought of failing to care for it scared him even more. But he shook the fear away. He had always faced challenges alone. He could face this one too. As night settled over Red Valley, Tom heard footsteps approaching. 3 men from the town walked toward his cabin. They were known troublemakers, always looking for someone weaker to mock. Tom stood up as they reached his fence. One of the men smirked and said they came to see the giant horse. Another laughed and asked if Tom had already been dragged across the field. The third man offered a fake warning that the horse was too dangerous for someone poor and inexperienced. Tom kept his voice steady. He told them the horse was fine and that he was grateful for the chance to care for it. But the men pushed closer, pretending they wanted to help. Tom felt uneasy. He could see mischief in their eyes. They had no interest in helping him. They only wanted to cause trouble. One of the men stepped toward the stable, but the giant horse suddenly lifted its head and gave a strong snort. The men froze. Even in the dim light, the size of the horse was impossible to ignore. Its shadow stretched across the ground like a massive guardian. The troublemakers exchanged uncertain glances. Tom stepped between them and the stable, telling them firmly to leave. His voice trembled slightly, but he stood tall. The men grumbled, pretending they were not afraid, but they slowly backed away. As they walked off into the night, one of them muttered that Tom would regret keeping the giant animal. When they were gone, Tom returned to the stable. The horse lowered its head again, as if asking if he was all right. Tom placed a gentle hand on its neck and whispered a soft thank you. He felt safe near the horse. It was not just strong in body. It carried a silent strength that gave Tom courage. The next morning, Tom woke before sunrise. He cooked a small breakfast for himself and then gathered fresh grass for the horse. He brushed its coat with slow strokes, learning the shape of its muscles and the rhythm of its breathing. The horse seemed to enjoy the attention. It closed its eyes and rested its head lightly on Tom's shoulder for a moment. Tom laughed quietly. For the first time since he brought the giant horse home, he felt true joy. After feeding the horse, Tom led it out into an open field behind his cabin. He wanted to see how it moved, how fast it could run, and how well it listened. The horse followed him without hesitation. Tom held the rope loosely, surprised by how gentle the giant creature behaved. Tom raised his hand and gave a small signal. The horse stepped forward slowly. Tom nodded, testing another signal to make it stop. The horse responded as if it had known him for years. He tried a few more simple moves, and each time the horse listened perfectly. Tom's confidence grew with each step. He realized the horse was not just strong. It was intelligent. Tom wanted to try riding it, but fear held him back. Not fear of falling. Fear of failing. What if he hurt the horse? What if he could not control it? What if the town laughed even more? He shook these thoughts away and decided to take things slowly. The horse seemed to sense his uncertainty and did not push him. It simply walked beside him, steady and loyal. Later that day, Tom walked into town to buy more supplies for the stable. The moment he entered the market, people turned to stare. Some whispered that the horse was too big for him. Others said he would soon come crawling back, begging someone else to take it. A few even suggested he should sell it before he embarrassed himself. Tom kept his head down and gathered what he needed. He bought nails, rope, and a few tools with the little money he had left. As he worked his way through the market, a kind old man approached him. The man had seen Tom working hard for months and respected his quiet strength. He told Tom not to listen to the cruel people in town. He said sometimes the world tested those who deserved more than they had. Tom nodded but did not trust his voice to speak. He felt grateful for the old man's kindness. It was the first time someone in Red Valley had spoken to him with respect. When Tom returned home, he found the giant horse waiting at the fence, as if it had been watching for him. Tom smiled and hurried to its side. The horse nudged his shoulder gently, and Tom felt a warm rush of affection. He spent the rest of the day repairing the stable roof and building a bigger feeding area. The horse stayed nearby, sometimes helping by moving heavy logs with its head. As the sun began to set again, Tom sat on the grass beside the horse. He told it about his dreams. He told it about the races he wished to join. He told it how he wanted to prove himself, not to the people of Red Valley, but to himself. The horse listened in silence, breathing calmly beside him. That night, as Tom lay in his small bed, he heard distant voices again. The troublemakers were back, whispering plans. Tom sat up, alert and tense. He wanted to protect his horse. He wanted to protect his chance at a better life. What happened next would shake Red Valley in ways no one expected. The night in Red Valley was quiet at first, but Tom could sense danger in the air. The troublemakers who had visited earlier were whispering near the road again. Their voices floated through the thin cabin walls, faint but sharp enough to make Tom sit up in bed. He moved silently toward the window and peeked outside. The moonlight revealed 3 shadows standing near his fence. They were pointing toward the stable where the giant horse rested. Tom felt fear rise in his chest, but he took a slow breath to steady himself. He knew he had to protect the horse. He quickly put on his boots and stepped outside without making a sound. The night air was cool, and the only light came from the moon hanging above the trees. Tom walked to the corner of the cabin and listened carefully. The troublemakers whispered about proving that Tom was unfit to own such a large animal. One of them suggested opening the stable and letting the horse run loose so Tom would fail to control it. Another said they should try to scare the horse so it would break the fence. The third man laughed softly, saying the town would blame Tom no matter what happened. Tom felt anger stir inside him, but he kept his steps quiet as he moved behind the stable. He knew confronting them directly could make things worse. Instead, he decided to stand between the horse and danger. He gently opened the back door of the stable and stepped inside. The giant horse lifted its head as soon as Tom entered. Its eyes glowed softly in the moonlit darkness. Tom placed his hand on the horse's neck and whispered calmly. He told the horse to stay quiet and trust him. The animal lowered its head, understanding his tone even if it could not understand his words. Tom stood near the door, ready to act if the troublemakers tried anything. Moments later, the stable door on the other side creaked. One of the men was trying to force it open. Tom stepped forward, blocking the horse with his body. The door pushed once, then twice, and finally swung open. The man responsible stumbled inside and froze when he saw Tom standing in front of him. The two other men rushed forward, ready to cheer their friend, but their expressions changed when they saw the giant horse raising its head behind Tom. The horse was not angry, but its size alone was enough to make their confidence melt. The men backed up without thinking. They had expected Tom to be weak and afraid. They had not expected him to stand tall with a massive animal behind him. Tom stepped out of the stable and faced them. He told them firmly to stop causing trouble. His voice did not shake this time. The men tried to act brave, but the horse took one slow step forward, and they stumbled back in fear. They muttered excuses and hurried away into the night, pretending they were leaving by choice. Tom watched them disappear, then returned to the horse. The giant animal lowered its head again, sensing Tom had done something brave. Tom stroked its long nose and felt a mix of relief and pride. For the first time, he felt he was not alone. The horse was more than a gift. It was a partner. The next morning, Tom woke early and stepped outside to check the stable. The sun was rising, painting the sky with warm colors. The horse was standing calmly, ready for another day. Tom smiled and fetched fresh grass and water. He fed the horse, brushed its coat, and checked its hooves. He felt a growing bond with the animal, a strong connection that was no longer uncertain. After caring for the horse, Tom decided it was time to practice riding. He had avoided it long enough. If he wanted to build a future with this horse, he needed to learn. He led the horse to the open field behind his cabin. The grass moved gently in the morning breeze, and birds sang softly nearby. Tom placed one foot in the stirrup and tried to climb up. The horse remained still, making it easier for him. Tom hesitated, then pulled himself up with effort. The moment he settled on the horse's back, he felt how high he was. The view was different. The air felt different. Everything looked smaller from up there. At first, Tom was unsure. His hands trembled slightly as he held the reins. But the horse took a slow step forward, steady and controlled. Tom felt his balance shift, but he held on. The horse walked in a gentle circle, responding to each small signal Tom gave. Bit by bit, Tom relaxed. He practiced until noon. By then, he had learned how to turn, how to stop, and how to keep his balance even when the horse increased its speed slightly. When Tom dismounted, he felt lighter, stronger, and more confident. The horse nudged him proudly, as if encouraging him to continue. Later that day, Tom took the horse into town for the first time. People turned immediately. Some gasped at the sight. Others whispered. A few laughed again, saying Tom looked too small on such a large animal. But this time Tom did not feel hurt. He felt strong. He sat tall, guiding the horse with careful hands, moving slowly through the main street. As he passed the market, the kind old man from before waved at him. Tom smiled and waved back. Children ran to the fences to see the horse more closely. They pointed and whispered with excitement rather than cruelty. The giant horse walked calmly, not bothered by the noise or the movement around it. Tom stopped near the supply store to buy fresh rope. When he entered, he heard the store owner's surprised voice. The owner told Tom that the yearly Red Valley race was coming soon. It was the biggest event in town. Horses from all nearby settlements would compete. The winner received a large prize and the respect of everyone. Tom felt his heart race at the thought. Could he enter? Could he compete? He was just learning how to ride. But his horse was strong, fast, and intelligent. If they trained well, maybe they had a chance. The idea filled Tom with both excitement and fear. When he returned home, he led the horse to the field again. He mounted the saddle and practiced riding until sunset. His legs ached, his arms felt tired, and sweat ran down his back. But he kept going. He wanted to be ready. He wanted to prove something, not to the people who laughed at him, but to himself. Over the next few days, Tom trained daily. The horse learned his signals quickly. It began to run faster, smoother, and more confidently. Tom learned how to lean forward, how to stay balanced, and how to guide the horse around sharp turns. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. But the troublemakers did not disappear. They watched Tom's progress from a distance. They whispered and plotted. They could not stand the thought of Tom rising higher than them. They wanted him to fail. They wanted the town to laugh at him again. One evening, as Tom finished training, he noticed something strange near the fence. Footprints. 3 sets. Fresh ones. Tom knew exactly who they belonged to. He felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Whatever they planned next would not just be mischief. It would be something bigger. Something dangerous. And it was coming soon. The days passed quickly as Tom continued training with the giant horse. Their bond had grown stronger than Tom ever expected. The horse understood his voice, his signals, and even his silences. When Tom was tired, the horse slowed down. When Tom felt confident, the horse moved faster. The field behind the cabin had become a place of growth and trust. But the fresh footprints near the fence remained in Tom's mind. He knew the troublemakers were planning something. Each night he checked the stable twice. Each morning he inspected the fence and the field. He tried not to worry, but the feeling of danger never left him. One afternoon, as Tom guided the horse around the field, he noticed smoke rising from the town center. It was not the usual smoke from the market kitchens. It was thicker, darker, rising fast into the sky. Tom felt a jolt of fear and urged the horse forward. They raced toward Red Valley, the wind rushing past Tom's ears. When Tom reached the town, he found people running in all directions. The old barn near the blacksmith shop was on fire. Flames climbed the wooden walls, and thick smoke filled the air. People shouted for buckets, shouted for water, shouted for help. But the fire was spreading too fast. Tom jumped off the horse and ran to the crowd. The town sheriff tried to keep everyone calm, but panic had already taken hold. A few men attempted to throw water on the flames, but it was not enough. The fire roared louder, and the heat pushed people back. Then Tom heard a scream. A young girl was trapped inside the barn. She had gone in to save her goat and could not find her way out now that the smoke had filled the building. Her mother cried helplessly, begging someone to save her child. But no one dared to enter the burning barn. The flames were too strong. Tom did not stop to think. He turned to his giant horse. The horse met his gaze, understanding what Tom needed even before he said anything. Tom jumped onto its back, grabbed the reins tightly, and guided it toward the burning barn. People shouted for him to stop. They said he would get hurt. They said the horse would panic. But Tom ignored them. The horse charged through the smoke with powerful steps. Tom covered his mouth with his sleeve as the heat pressed against his skin. The horse pushed into the barn, moving through burning hay and falling embers. The girl's cries grew louder as they got closer. Tom spotted her near a corner, coughing and struggling to breathe. The goat stood trembling beside her. Tom leaned down and reached out his hand. The girl grabbed it with weak fingers. Tom pulled her onto the horse, placing her in front of him. Then he shouted for the goat to follow. The horse turned and stepped carefully through the burning barn again. A beam cracked above them and fell, but the horse swerved just in time. Sparks scattered across its coat, but the giant animal did not stop. It kept moving forward, trusting Tom completely. With a final leap through the thick smoke, the horse burst out of the barn and into the open air. The crowd gasped as Tom, the girl, and the goat emerged from the flames. The girl's mother ran forward, crying with joy as she pulled her daughter into her arms. The town sheriff hurried over and helped Tom down. The horse shook the ash from its coat and stood tall, calm, and uninjured. People stared in shock. The same people who mocked Tom. The same people who laughed when he received the giant horse. Now they saw something different. They saw courage. They saw strength. They saw a bond that none of them understood. Tom tried to step back, but the sheriff called for everyone's attention. He told the crowd that Tom had risked his life when no one else dared to. The giant horse had saved the girl, and Tom had guided it with skill and bravery. The sheriff said the town owed them gratitude, not laughter. For the first time, Tom saw respect in the eyes of the people around him. Children looked at the horse with admiration. Some men nodded to Tom in quiet approval. Even the women who once whispered behind his back now watched him with softened expressions. But hidden in the crowd were the three troublemakers. Their faces twisted with jealousy as they watched people praise Tom. They had wanted him to fail. They had wanted the horse to become a burden. Instead, Tom had become a hero. That night, after the fire was finally put out, Tom returned to his cabin. The horse walked proudly beside him. Tom brushed its coat and whispered a gentle thanks. He felt grateful for the animal's bravery and loyalty. After feeding the horse, Tom rested on the grass outside the stable, watching the stars appear above the trees. He knew things were changing. The town would never see him the same way again. But he also knew the troublemakers had not given up. Their jealousy burned brighter now, and jealousy was a dangerous flame. The next morning, Tom woke early and found the stable door open. His heart lurched. He ran inside, expecting the horse to be gone. But the animal stood calmly in the corner, as if waiting for him. Tom breathed with relief but then saw deep cuts on the wooden door. Someone had tried to break the lock. They had tried hard. Tom closed his eyes for a moment. The troublemakers were not just jealous now. They were determined. They wanted to ruin him before the Red Valley race. They wanted to destroy his chance at a better future. That afternoon, Tom practiced riding again. He learned to guide the horse at higher speed. He practiced sharp turns and long sprints. The horse responded with precision, its strength unmatched by any other animal in town. Tom felt hope rising. They were ready to enter the race. They were ready to prove what no one expected. But before the race could arrive, Tom knew he had to stay alert. He repaired the stable door. He placed stones around the fence so he could hear footsteps at night. He kept a lantern lit near the window so he would wake if a shadow passed. Still, the troublemakers found a way. One evening, as Tom was brushing the horse's coat, he heard a faint sound beyond the trees. At first he thought it was the wind. Then he heard it again. A quiet crack. A branch breaking. Someone was hiding nearby. Tom walked toward the sound, moving slowly, careful not to startle the horse. The trees rustled softly. Then Tom saw them. The three troublemakers crouched behind the bushes. They held ropes and tools. They planned to steal the horse or hurt it. Before Tom could yell, the men rushed forward. Tom stepped back, calling the horse's name. The giant animal turned calmly toward him, sensing danger. The men lunged, trying to throw ropes around the horse's neck. But the horse reared up, towering above them, casting a long shadow across the grass. Tom shouted for the men to stop. But they did not listen. They kept trying to approach the horse, driven by jealousy and anger. The horse shook its head, warning them with a powerful snort. Then everything changed at once. One man slipped on the grass and fell. Another tripped over him. The third stumbled backward, crashing into the fence. The giant horse stepped forward and stood between Tom and the men. It did not attack. It did not panic. It simply protected. The men scrambled to their feet and ran into the darkness, terrified. The horse lowered its head again to Tom, calm and steady. Tom knew then that the horse was more than strong. It was wise. It understood loyalty in a way few humans did. And the coming race would reveal just how special this bond truly was. The morning of the Red Valley race arrived with clear skies and a warm breeze. The entire town gathered near the large open track at the edge of the valley. People set up wooden stands, children ran in circles with excitement, and merchants sold snacks while families searched for good places to sit. Horses from nearby towns lined up along the fences, each one groomed and shining, their riders proud and confident. Tom arrived quietly, guiding the giant horse beside him. The crowd turned immediately. Whispers spread faster than wind. Many stared in surprise, remembering how the horse had saved the young girl from the fire. Others wondered whether Tom had enough skill to race such a powerful animal. But most people simply watched with curiosity, waiting to see what would happen. Tom felt nervous, but he stood tall. He had trained for days and nights. His bond with the horse was strong. He trusted the animal completely. The horse walked calmly, its steps steady and controlled, as if it understood the importance of the moment. Tom led the horse to the registration table. The sheriff greeted him with a warm nod and entered his name. Some riders frowned, unhappy to have such a massive competitor among them. Others shook their heads, confident that Tom would fail. But Tom ignored every look. His focus was on the horse beside him. Before the race began, riders had a chance to walk their horses around the track to warm up. Tom climbed into the saddle, gripping the reins firmly. The horse responded with a gentle step forward. As they moved across the dirt track, the crowd watched closely. The giant horse moved with surprising grace. Its steps were powerful but smooth, and Tom guided it with careful signals. Soon, the troublemakers appeared at the edge of the track, their eyes filled with resentment. They wanted Tom to fail more than anything. They whispered among themselves, planning something. Tom did not see them yet, but their presence lingered like a shadow. The announcer stepped onto a small platform and raised his hand to get everyone's attention. He explained the race rules. Riders had to complete 2 full laps around the track. Speed mattered, but control mattered even more. Any horse that caused harm or left the track would be disqualified. The crowd listened closely. When the riders lined up at the starting line, Tom felt his hands tremble slightly. The giant horse sensed his nerves and nudged him gently, calming him. Tom took a deep breath and nodded. He felt ready. The announcer raised a red flag. The crowd leaned forward. Moments later, the flag dropped, and the race began. The horses burst forward in a blur of color and sound. Riders shouted commands as hooves kicked up dust. Tom guided his giant horse into a steady pace, not rushing, not falling behind. Some riders laughed as they passed him, thinking he was too slow. But Tom stayed focused. The horse ran with controlled strength, its breathing steady. Tom knew the animal had great power, but using it too early would tire it before the final lap. He kept a careful pace, watching the riders ahead. As they reached the first turn, one of the troublemakers who was riding in the race tried to push his horse close to Tom's. He wanted to make Tom panic. But the giant horse moved aside calmly, avoiding trouble. The troublemaker grimaced and pushed ahead. Tom smiled slightly. He knew his horse was wiser than many people gave it credit for. By the middle of the first lap, 2 riders had already started to pull ahead. The crowd cheered loudly for them. Tom remained at a middle position, letting the horse settle into rhythm. Dust swirled around them, and the wind brushed against Tom's face. For a moment, he forgot the crowd. He forgot the laughter. He forgot the troublemakers. It was just him and the horse, moving as one. As they approached the end of the first lap, something unexpected happened. One of the troublemakers who stood near the track lifted a long stick and waved it suddenly in front of Tom's horse, trying to startle it. The horse flinched for a moment, and Tom felt his heart jump. But the animal did not panic. It simply adjusted its step and continued running. The sheriff saw the incident and shouted at the troublemaker. People around him scolded him too. The man quickly hid the stick and stepped back. Tom looked ahead again, grateful the horse remained calm. Now it was time to speed up. Tom leaned forward and whispered a signal. The giant horse responded instantly. Its pace increased, its steps stretched farther, and its breathing deepened. The ground seemed to tremble under its power. One by one, Tom passed the riders who had mocked him earlier. The crowd gasped as the giant horse moved like a force of nature. Entering the second lap, Tom was already among the top 3 riders. The 2 leading riders glanced back in shock as Tom closed the distance. Dust flew behind him as the horse charged forward with unstoppable strength. The final turn approached, and the crowd roared with excitement. Tom felt his heart pounding. He signaled the horse again. The giant animal surged ahead, overtaking the second rider. Only one remained in front now. But the last rider was one of the troublemakers. He looked back at Tom with anger and fear mixed in his eyes. He slapped his horse roughly, pushing it to run faster. But the giant horse behind him was stronger. Tom and the horse reached the final stretch. The finish line waited ahead. The crowd screamed with excitement. Tom leaned forward again, giving the horse one final signal. The giant horse accelerated with incredible power. It overtook the last rider in one smooth motion and crossed the finish line first. The crowd exploded with cheers. People jumped to their feet, shouting Tom's name. Children ran toward the track, waving their arms. The sheriff raised his hat proudly. Even riders who had doubted Tom stared with respect. Tom slowed the horse to a stop and dismounted with shaky legs. He felt tears gather in his eyes, but he blinked them away. The horse lowered its head, and Tom wrapped his arms around its neck. He thanked the animal again and again, overwhelmed with emotion. The announcer declared Tom the winner, and the crowd celebrated wildly. People who once laughed at him now congratulated him. They praised the horse's strength and Tom's courage. The prize money was handed to him in a small wooden box, but the true reward was something far greater. For the first time in his life, Tom felt truly seen. The troublemakers, humiliated, tried to slip away unnoticed, but the sheriff caught them. He warned them never to disturb Tom again. The crowd agreed, reminding the troublemakers of their past actions. Shamed and defeated, they walked away with their heads low. Tom walked back to the horse and stroked its coat gently. The sun was beginning to set, casting warm light across the valley. Tom felt peace settle over him. He had arrived in Red Valley as a poor cowboy with nothing. People had laughed at him for receiving a giant horse. They had mocked his dreams, doubted his strength, and tried to break his spirit. But through patience, hard work, and the bond he built with the giant horse, he rose higher than anyone expected. As Tom led the horse toward home, the crowd watched with admiration. No one laughed at him anymore. Instead, they smiled with respect, knowing they had witnessed something rare. A poor cowboy had become the hero of Red Valley. And it all began with a horse that everyone thought was too big for him to handle.